And start our recording. And we are off to the races. Nick, thank you for joining us, and we appreciate your time.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're at. My name is Nick McCutcheon. I'm a project manager with our implementation team here at Presto Sports. I've been here for about 2.5 years now. Prior to that, I was a sports information director for just under a decade at three different schools, two in the NAIA, Dakota Wesleyan, and U of M Dearborn, as well as a Division II school, Saginaw Valley State, for a couple of years prior to moving over to Presto. So I have extensive experience using our Presto Sports products from a SID perspective, as well as working with Presto Sports. Today, I'm going to share my screen with you, go through a presentation. We're going to talk about baseball, softball stats. We're going to talk about lacrosse stats, and then we're going to go into our tennis platform as well. Just give me a moment here, and I will share my screen. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up, Brad, if you can see my screen. All right, we're good to go. So again, today we're going to go over Presto stats for baseball, softball, men's and women's lacrosse, and Presto stats tennis. We're going to start off with baseball. One of the biggest things with baseball, first and foremost, with all of your seasons, you want to make sure you go in and set up your seasons properly. That includes going into the season setup, and if you have a Presto Sports website, and going in and adding your rosters, your schedules, and all the accompanying files that go along with that. But the biggest thing with your stats is going to be your roster, making sure that's managed and well maintained. Specifically when it comes to baseball and softball, there is still the 40 person limit on the roster pages. I'm sorry, on the roster totals for active players. So prior to going into your games, you want to make sure your roster is set up to 40 or less active players. Not usually an issue with softball, but baseball, I know some teams can run into that over the course of the season. So just make sure you're in contact with your coach to make sure who's active and inactive before you go in and set up those games. And you can manage that through the roster tab in game day on your Presto Stats platform by going into the shared roster if you are a stats only client, or the BIOS roster if you are a web client, and making athletes active and inactive by clicking on the edit option. Oops, sorry about that. Click on the edit option and going in and marking them as active or inactive. Once you're all set with that, you'll be able to go in and launch the Presto Stats platform. You'll do your event information much like you've done in the past if you've used our products in the past. But as far as the event information, it's simply the team records, the location. For baseball, softball, if it's a first game or second game of a doubleheader, you can add that in there. There are also steps in there for the rare occurrences where you may have a home team batting first. You can mark that in the setup page of the Presto Stats platform for baseball and softball. I know that does happen sometimes in those neutral site games. You can also mark it as a day or nighttime or whatever you need to do. Add the weather in there as needed. The other big thing for baseball and softball is you can set the innings limit as well. So I know a lot of baseball doubleheaders will do 7 9s or 2 7s. You can mark those as 7 inning games in the setup prior to starting the game. And once you're ready to start putting in your lineup, the rosters are in there. You'll go into the set your lineup, and you have the drop down option for the player names. You can also just use their number. So if the player is number one, hit one, then tab over, and then put their position in there as well. And on down the list until you have the entire thing in here. I'll just say on this run right here, you're going to want to make sure you have a shortstop designated as well, because we have a DH and a pinch hitter on here. So typically with this, you're going to have your position players. Your pitcher will probably be your DF down here at the bottom. Some cases pitchers do hit. You have a flex position, a non-batter down there in that DF spot. The only one that you have to type in is DH. It doesn't have a number code, but the number codes for the positions are the same as they are around the diamond. So 1 for pitcher, 2 for catcher, on down the list. All right. As you get into the inputting of plays, before each batter, at the bottom of the screen, there is an option to put in the pitcher, the pitch sequence. You don't have to do this, but it is nice for the box score to have that in there. You'll go in, a secondary window will pop up where you can put in the pitch sequence. So whether it's a foul ball, a swinging strike, looking strike ball, intentional walk, hit by pitch. And once the ball is put in play, you simply hit P and it takes you back to the input screen where you'll see the batter, any runners that are on base in gray, and the fielders in the black background with the white text. So you'll put the sequence for events for what happened for the batter underneath the batter's name. So in this case, it was a double, an art, double, and then it went around. I apologize. A double, and then the batter advanced 3 bases to score. Uh, Same thing with like base on balls, strikeouts. If you're inputting pitches and you do have a third strike called, it will automatically put the KS or KL in there, and you have to put whatever happens with the runner if they did move up or stayed put on the play entry. If you are used to stat crew keystrokes, they are going to be identical. There's really not anything much that's different between Stat Crew and Presto as far as the keystrokes go for entering plays one by one as you go. If you are interested in looking at some of the sample plays, there is going to be a link at the end of the presentation here to the cheat sheets and sample plays. So you can go in there and kind of take a look at how those particular odd plays can get put in. I know baseball and softball do have some unique nuance to them. So you'll have an opportunity to take a look at those. So like double plays and rundowns and things like that. Those rare occurrences. Also, the one that comes up every year is the code to put in a runner on second base at the start of your extra innings. I forgot it every year. I don't judge anybody who forgets how to do that year to year because I always forgot as well. But that is on the cheat sheet as well. As you move throughout the game, you'll have you'll have opportunities to put in earned runs, whether a run was earned or not. But also the uh, system does not allow you to move from inning to inning without having your positions assigned. So if you did have a pinch runner or pinch hitter, it will mark them as a pinch runner or pinch hitter in the lineup. As you move to the next inning, it'll say something like it shows there in that middle graphic. Left field is not assigned. You'll go to your roster, make that adjustment before you move on to the next inning. But the system will not allow you to make that mistake where you'll have somebody not in a position. With the, I'm gonna go back real quick. As far as just to kind of bring this up real fast for substitutions, if it is a person subbing in directly into their spot in the lineup, you can use you can simply click on their name and bring in a different player. If it's a double switch, I fully suggest going to the roster to make that change. So up in the top right hand corner, you'll see a roster option, and you can change your roster from there when you have a double switch or an event like that. That's going to make it easier, but simply a pinch batter, you can click on their name, pinch hitter. You'll have the full drop down of available players to put in for the pinch hitter. Same thing with a pinch runner. As you move throughout the game on the left hand side of your screen, you'll see the most recent plays showing up, and you can click on the full play by play to go back in and make edits if you need to go back in and change a earned run to a non-earned run or a single to a double, or if you forgot to put in a stolen base, you can go back in and insert or edit those plays as needed, and it will guide you through on how to make sure that everything's saving properly. And once the game has been completed, you'll be able to put in your pitching decisions, go in and find your winning pitcher, your losing pitcher, and the save pitcher, and then go to their stats and find out what their record is and just update it there. And that will accumulate their record as you move throughout the season. And once the game's been completed, or even during the game, you have the view of the box score and the play-by-play reports to be able to print off for your coaches. And this is available in the reports tab in the stats portal to be able to download and view those. They'll also be available in game day in the event page. So once the game starts, you'll see in the event page the option to open up a PDF box score as well in there. Your packed files and your XMLs will be in there for download to be able to share with opposing SIDs as needed. If they are also using PrestoStats, it'll automatically show up in their event page as well on their end as the game progresses and completes. All right, I'm going to transition over to lacrosse. Lacrosse is a touch different than baseball. Very similar as far as going in and getting your schedules and roster set up through game day prior to the season starting. Once you open up your stats portal, you'll go into the setup. Very similar. Put the records in. Put the location. put in all the other information you need to add into the setup page. And then when you get to your lineups, you'll add your starting lineup. Your participants in the event for lacrosse, it's very similar to like football. If you've done football stats in the past, they don't get put in as a participant until they have a stat recorded because there aren't subs in lacrosse. Lacrosse moves too fast to be able to go sit there and put subs in as they go in and out. So if they have a stat in the box score, they will get marked as a participant. One of the rules I always used when I was an SID and I had lacrosse, I would go to the coaches prior to the game and say, hey, is there anybody on this list, anybody in the system that's not going to play in this game? So I can simply take them out so they don't accidentally get recorded. That's a good rule of thumb to kind of follow. Lacrosse rosters tend to be in that 25 to 40-ish player range, depending on the size of the school. So you can easily get some players taken out of there if they're not playing. Also, after the game, you can check with the coach to see if there was anybody that did enter the game, see if they played but did not have a stat recorded. Because lacrosse doesn't have a ton of stats if you are something like a defenseman or simply on the penalty kill. So you may have some situations where guys or girls go in, and they just simply don't record a stat when they're in the game. So just make sure you're keeping an eye on your participation to make sure that they are getting tracked in the system. All right. As you input plays, very similar to, again, the stat crew keystrokes, if you are familiar with those. Any keystrokes are going to be underlined underneath the word there. So like for shot, it's S. So you can use your keyboard as you go along. You can also use your mouse and click through if that's easier for you. Very similar to baseball, you'll be able to track your play-by-play on the left-hand side and open that up to be able to access the full play-by-play and go back in and make edits. Again, with the cheat sheets that I mentioned for baseball and softball, we do also have those for men's and women's lacrosse, along with the sample penalties. I always like to have that penalty sheet printed out, set next to me at the event, so I'm not having to go in and look for the particular penalty. I always find that very helpful with football, but it is also helpful for lacrosse and hockey if you're a hockey school as well. Just having that sheet next to you to be able to quickly identify your penalty codes as you're going through. Otherwise, you can simply find them by scrolling as you go through the penalty page. Once the game's completed, you'll complete the game information, put in the ending time, set your participation. That's the page right there where you'll go in and add anybody that may have entered the game but did not have a stat recorded. So you can check the box for them to make sure they're showing as participating in the game. Inputting goalie records, very similar to your pitching records. Winning team, losing team, add their record in there. And the last button there will finalize the game and update the team records automatically. Going back to baseball real fast, when you're doing the updates for the records, it does not automatically, there's not a button to automatically update those. You will go in and just adjust the records as the game ends. And it's similar to baseball. You have the box scores to be able to print out and give to the coaches after the games. You have the condensed box score and also the play-by-play summary as well if you need to have that. And as mentioned, the cheat sheets for your lacrosse and baseball softball. When you go to the baseball softball page, there is a page for the cheat sheet and a page for the sample plays. When you go to the lacrosse page, there's an option for the penalties and then for the cheat sheet. All right, and going over to Presto Tennis. I'll bring over this window here. All right, so for Presto Tennis, once your events have been set up, you'll open up your PrestoStats portal. You'll see your events in there. This three-dot box up here at the top, click on that. It'll open up the options on where you can go to start adding information. So we'll start with event information. Done that. Open that up. Venue, type that in. You mark it as a neutral site game. You put in the address, and all that stuff will show up in the box score or the event information. I apologize. Clicking on event settings. You can set this up to if there are unique event settings to your particular event, number of matches, points scored, court type, whatever you want to add into this for the event settings. And go ahead and click save. Going down to the individual teams, click on their icon over here. We have Presto Sports versus Presto Sports. You'll see their color code here. You can change that up if you need to. You can put in their record, conference record, and ranking. and going into their roster. I've already started to add some dummy roster into both of these. As you need to add the rosters, if you need to add a player, if it's not already in there, you can click on new player here in the top right. Give them a number. The number doesn't really matter. Correct, Brad? The number is just needs to be a number, correct? He's giving me shaking his head, giving me a
Yeah,
thumbs up.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, just a number.
all right. So go in, put in their first name, last name, and their year. I would be a super senior at this point. Uh, National ranking, regional ranking, conference ranking. If you do have those, you can go ahead and put those in. I'm very good, so I'm going to be number one in all of them. Hit save. Come back over, and they'll populate into the roster. Going over to the other team, I already have a roster put in there. But you can, again, add players as needed when you're setting up the games. Once you're ready to go ahead and start creating your matches, click on the input plays icon over here on the side, input matches icon over here on the side. Add singles match. From the drop down up here, you'll see your roster inputted. Select the players and input the scores. And down the bottom, you can do the match duration and hit save. So I won 6-0, 6-0. All right, match duration. The longest straight sets win ever.
Hey, Nick, stay on that screen real
Mhm.
quick. So if you have a tiebreak set, so say your match has already been decided, your coaches want to play out that a third set tiebreak if that has not started yet. That's under, a lot of people are confused as to where that is. That is under the match tiebreak section there. And if you just go over to points, you can enter your score right there. So if it went 13-11 and it was a tie break, you would just enter it on that side of that school. So, or of that player. That's just one of the common questions we've been getting.
All right. And same thing for doubles. Go in and add your doubles matches. Very similar to your singles matches. And here you can kind of see the running tally of the game, of the match. There we go. Brad, was there anything I missed on tennis that you want me to cover?
Um, I don't think so. I will just mention that one thing that people have been mentioning to us is that when they've tried to import a tennis file into Sidearm, it's adding a point. There's an issue with the XML. It's not counting the doubles correctly. We are fixing that right now, so that'll be fixed within the next week or two. And so that's already in the system, ready to go. The other thing that I did want to mention, and Nick, actually, can you go back into that match
Mm-hmm.
and let's enter a roster for enter another roster player for any team. So one of the things that we have heard back a number of times from the fall, especially, was that you couldn't enter a roster for a team that didn't have one in there already. Now you can. So you just need to go to their roster within once you launch PrestoStats Tennis, you can go in here and hit new player, and you can add any number of roster players that you want directly through here. So if you're playing someone that's not utilizing Presto Tennis, it's easy enough to go in there, enter their roster directly there.
All right. And also, we want to make sure our personal support is available to you as well. The link here is for our support form at the very top. Non-emergency issues resolved within 24 to 48 hours. And we also have our SOS text line available at that phone number listed if you are having issues on game day that need immediate assistance. With that, I will turn it back over to Brad in the chat if we have anything.
We've got a few questions. We just answered one of them. Can you import a roster for tennis?
Go back. So the import, you can it's set up with a CSV, so you can import it. It needs to be in this manner here, though. As far as the XTR rosters, right? I'm not positive we can import XTR rosters into this system.
Actually, Josh Fowler is on this call. Josh just joined us. He's our VP of product. Josh, can you answer that?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I can answer that for you. So, no, well, we do not support that. Reason being is that Stat Crew, they're dying after this season, and we didn't spend the development resources on putting that import in where we can spend it somewhere else, where it would only be valid for one season. But no, we do not have any plans to add the ability to import a Stat Crew file, but you can use a CSV.
If you need to fill out a CSV, Josh, they would simply download the sample file and fill it out from there.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Next question is, will the PrestoStats Tennis product allow the users to accumulate historical data on the players? Yes. We are still finalizing the player pages. Josh, and I know your team is just about done with those. But yes, similar to any of our other products, you'll be able to look up stats as you've entered them game by game. So if you've got XTGs from 10 years for each contest, that yes, you can go in and enter that. We've got a question and a hand raised from Chris Sabato. Chris, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Is there a plan to better handle numbers in tennis? Like, I know why you're using them, I know why they're there, but sometimes it's like, oh, I need to add a player. Then I got to go back and look what number haven't I used? What like it? I know why it's there, but I feel like the system should just be able to generate something that it uses, and I don't have to worry about it.
I can actually answer that. So we actually don't. Well, as of right now, we don't require numbers. You can actually leave it blank now, and it'll auto-generate a player ID. The problem we found with that at the given moment, our system handles it just fine. Stat Broadcast seems to be able to handle it. If you have a sidearm site, it does not handle it. They cannot account for the auto-generated player IDs that we have. It's in other XMLs, so they should be able to support it, hopefully in the future. They just have to make the change on their end. But that's one of the main reasons we have them, is because some of those legacy systems, like if you try to import it into StatCrew, it probably wouldn't work, just because those auto-generated IDs are a little bit longer than they can support. But we want to make sure they're unique across the board. That way, long term, when we're putting together career stats and stuff like that, every single player across the board over all those years have unique IDs, instead of having a uniform number. Stat Crew actually does all their stuff by uniform number and name. Well, sometimes, over the years, you might have a player with the same name, the same uniform number. So that's why we have those unique IDs. And so yeah, while on tennis, we don't necessarily require it at the moment. We've thought about it just for this season, just to help some of those third-party vendors that can't support those long IDs, but then next year go into those long IDs again.
And that's just for the scoring software, correct? That's not the case in the web rosters, in the game day rosters.
Yeah, in the bios themselves, it does require a number, which is something that we're going to change. But yes, technically in the bios on the web, it does require it. I think for tennis, we suggest using the rank as it stands right now. But yeah, that's something we're going to get rid of on the bios too for tennis. We just haven't gotten exactly that far. We're still working on those player pages for tennis.
All right. Next question, while Josh is here, it's Josh, one of your favorite questions is about cap files in baseball, softball. So Josh, why don't you kind of discuss a little bit about where we're at with that type of an item and what the future looks like?
Yeah. So we have a few things going on. We've heard, the request for cap files in the system. Our system, our core was built on a event by event core, where we take event by event and then we calculate all the stats on the season. Kind of an auditing system almost. With a cap file, when you're sending that in, that's based on more of a season. So we don't have necessarily an import for that. Now, there's a couple things going forward. We're currently talking about being able to take that cap file and then just spit out a report for the game. We actually have in our system what's called a coach's view, which is kind of the same idea, to where you can go to it on the front end. The problem and one of the hiccups are the schools that don't have us for web and may not necessarily use us for live stats, especially in the NCAA. So what we're going to start doing now, and it's not going to be for this season, but going into next season, we're going to start ingesting all that NCAA data, to where you'll be able to print out those reports without even requesting it from the school. On the back end, you'll be able to go in, print out the reports, and hand them out. Almost like our coach's view, but we'll already have the stats in our system. Now, you will have to still figure out who's going to be your starters, of course, but we will at least have, all your good most runs, your ERA, things like that within there. But right now, we don't take a cap file. We're tossing up the idea of just having some type of importer to where it can spit out the file or print out a report for us. But since Stat Crew's only going to be around for, again, one more season, we're not sure we want to waste the development resources on something like that. We're investigating how long it's going to take now. But yeah, going forward into next season, we'll start ingesting all that data. We'll have all the data for, of course, NJCAA, NAIA. We already have that to where you can print out those types of coaches reports, on the back end and even on the front end. And then NCAA, we're going to start ingesting that data so we can do that next season.
Thanks, Josh.
Yep.
Next question comes in about best practices on baseball, softball, when the teams are reversed home and visitor. So Nick, can you talk a little bit about the easiest way to deal with that?
Yeah, if you know about it more than a few minutes ahead of time before first pitch, the best way to do it is to just go in and close out of the if you've already opened up the stats portal, close that back out, go back into the event page and switch the home and visiting teams in the actual event page before you open up the stats portal. If you have already opened up the stats portal, you will need to remove that box score before you do it. But that's the best way to go about doing that. If you are really in a pinch, there's an option in the settings to have the home team batting first, so you can at least get the stats in the correct innings. So that is one option. I know when you go down to these tournaments, a lot of times you don't know who the home and away team is until you do a coin flip before the game. I've been there. So if you know that going in that you're not going to know who the home team is, I would simply wait until you know before you open up the stats portal, because baseball and softball, they move at a relatively slower pace. You can typically catch up if you're only a half an inning behind. So having the home and away set up in the event page before you open up the stats portal would be my best suggestion. But in a pinch, there's always the option in the settings to have the home team bat first.
That's awesome. Next question is, and Josh, another one of your favorites, and I'm going to go ahead and try to answer this first, and you jump in if I didn't answer appropriately. But baseball limit on 40 players on a roster. Okay, so currently our system can, so the way the stat program is written, and this is, remember, this is our legacy version of stats. There's no way to up that limit. Now, in the next few months, I think we're going to be able to take a look at some things. Pack files were a big part of that. And with us not supporting pack files anymore, we may be able to do some things. But Josh, why don't you provide a little bit more detail than the roundabout answer I just gave?
Yeah, I can give a little bit more technical answer to that. So most of you probably know that our legacy software is actually based off of, the way Stat Crew enters key presses, everything. They basically took what Stat Crew did, put it in our system, put a new UI on it, and a few changes. With that, the way our system works currently is that it takes it from legacy stat, makes the pack file, and generates the XML. Stat Crew also has that 40 limit, mainly because of the pack file. The pack file only supports 40 players at a time. Now, you can switch out players, kind of like how you can switch out players in ours, but it can mess up the stats. After this season, we're going to be getting away from that. I don't know if anybody's seen our communications that have gone out saying that we're going to discontinue the generation of pack files. Reason being, it's really limiting us going forward. Every season we get that question on why do you only support 40 players? That's why. That pack file is limiting us. So this season, after this season, we're going to get rid of that pack file generation, that middleman that's killing us, and just go straight into XML and JSON. This will allow us to add as many players as we want. That being said, I can't promise that, if you have 100 players on your team that it won't lag the software, but and you think 100 is a lot, but I saw someone the other day say, hey, I have 100 players on my baseball team. So, but yes, we will be able to start having more than 40 next season once we get rid of that pack file. Just to add to that, we'll also be getting rid of the first initial last name on our rosters going forward, also getting rid of those pack files. We've actually already started to convert a few things. In fact, if you go to NJCAA stats website or NAIA stats website, we actually just did the conversion this morning on the NAIA site to where now it'll start showing in certain places the full name. And it won't show just the first initial and last name.
Thanks, Josh. One thing, if you are looking to just try the stats software out and you don't want to, you just want to kind of use it as training purposes, we do have a demo site that you can use for that purpose. It's called Try PrestoStats. I'm going to put that link into the chat, so if you want to take a look at that. But go ahead and feel free to use that to your heart's content, and you will be able to try everything that we've shown today except for tennis. And we've got a different spot for that. We will go ahead and put that into the deck, which we're going to upload onto our website. I'll put all of that information into the chat here in just a second. I had another question. Does that also allow for basketball too? What we've been doing is setting up a game months later and displaying it as an exhibition. Yes, you can try PrestoStats for basketball.
Yeah, and just a quick note on that. So our tryprestostats.com is just our legacy stats entry, and in fact, it's a older version of it. We are working on the most current version onto there. We're updating it. So there are a few things, especially like women's lacrosse and things like that. Some rules have changed over the years. That's not in there yet. But within the next few weeks, we'll have an updated version on there. So when you try it, you'll be using the latest.
Give me just a second. I'm going to get everyone the tennis information. Any further questions if anyone would like to unmute and ask a question? Okay. Well, as I said, we're going to have the deck located on our website, and I'm going to put that into the chat right now as well. So you know exactly where to get that. That's under our events and webinars page. Many of you had a link to that already, but I'm going to also just put that in there for you. Outside of that, we'll have the recording of this webinar in there as well. So I will drop this into the chat for you to copy. And we will also have the recording of the webinar on our help page, and we'll post it on our Facebook page as well. So one final thing, if you have not had a chance to look at our Facebook page or follow us there, we do post a lot of product updates there. So please follow us on Facebook, and that will be a good place for you to find out updates if there's something going on with the system. I know we had a little hiccup the other day that we posted about. So usually that's going to be right there for you. So we thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate it.
Brad, I did want to add one thing real quick.
Yeah.
If you have not gone ahead and purchased stats for the 24-25 season for baseball, softball, lacrosse, I know a lot of the northern schools haven't started their seasons yet. Just make sure you're up to date on that so you have access to it going into the start of your season. Because if you wait until the day of, right before the game, it may take a little bit to get your stats set up and turned on for you. So just a heads up on that.
Thank you, Nick. That's awesome. All right, everyone. Thanks so much.
Take care.